for artists that want to follow a realistic style, I don't know that you necessarily have to overthink about an influence like me or any other painter who does realism. You can certainly get a lot from the pieces that we've done, maybe even imitate some of those compositions, but I think you'll find your own way once you're just studying reality, which is what I would do. I mean, if I'm going to look at people, things, photographs, it's beneficial to start shooting your own if you can get into that. And these days, since everybody's got a camera, that's not so much of an issue anymore. Being able to study life as the basis for something is the best. I had the longest problem of thinking I needed to have everybody and every element be perfect before I could use it as a reference source. And so it took me a long time to realize how flexible the basis of the human form is. I've posed for myself on loads of paintings where now I guess I'm called out by some people online. It's a process of getting your mind comfortable with what you're building off of. And at a certain point, I would say accept that you're going to feel like you're not seeing it until you've seen it. You know, that maybe you do need to have a thing look like a thing exactly before you're painting from it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. This is a long time coming. Khary Randolph and I have been circling each other for years at cons. And I'm like, you got to come on. You got to come on. And schedules didn't work out. Finally, though, I'm happy to welcome Khary Randolph to Word Balloon. Good to see you, dude.
Thank you for having me, man. You are not kidding. We've been having this conversation for literally years.
Yeah, man.
You have one of my favorite podcasts. When podcasts first started like popping off a while back, there was only a few comic book podcasts that I listened to, and yours was like right at the top. And I remember saying to myself, I was like, man, one of these days I'm gonna get on John's show, man. This is a long time coming for me, man. So thank you.
Well, are you kidding? It's a long time coming for me too, and I appreciate the compliments. And all I can say is I've enjoyed your art for years. And when we first met and stuff, it's like, good Lord, why don't I have Khary Randolph on the show? This is, it's inevitable. So here we are. And what an interesting time for you, Khary, because we were just talking off the air and everything. I mean, you're in the midst of your first Substack book, and that was a big announcement that came at the beginning of February.
Yeah,
and. And again, forgive me, dude. Tell me the title of the book here.
The title of the book is Sirens of the City.
Sirens of the City. And it's you and?
Joanne Starr.
Joanne Starr. Very cool. Excellent. How's it been going? I know that people who sign up can get the comic for free, and that's not part of the pay side of Substack to get the book. Am I correct?
Yeah, it was so. The way Substack works is you have pretty much free reign to do whatever you want with the site. So some people put their comics behind the paywall. Some people do different things. We decided early on that like we wanted to make sure that since we were given this opportunity, that we wanted to give back and make the comics 100% free. So we post them about 3 pages a week. Every week for free on the site, and anyone can sign up for that at any time. If people wanted more stuff, though, we have a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and making of layouts and character designs and things of that matter, videos and sketchbooks. All that stuff is behind the paywall. But we wanted to make sure that the comics come first for us, and we wanted this book to be seen by as wide an audience as possible. So we wanted the actual book itself to be free.
I don't blame you. I think that's terrific, and it's been interesting seeing all the different ways people are approaching Substack when they get this opportunity. And regardless, hey, it's awesome of Substack to offer these grants, and I mean that's terrific. And I mean it really gives creatives a chance to kind of do their thing, and all they ask in return is creating the newsletter and the community
Yeah.
to check out the other stuff. So that's cool. Did you talk to others who were part of the first Substack wave before you guys got involved with this?
Yes. Well, that was like necessary because let's be honest, this thing is like so new that we didn't know what we were doing when we signed up for it. You know, like
Sure.
when you say a newsletter, uh, well, that's what Substack was known for, was like newsletters. And at first, I was just like, what the hell do I want to do with like a newsletter? You know, like how do I don't I don't need to do that, you know, like I'm not sitting there at my computer talking about my daily thoughts, you know what I'm saying?
I'm hip.
But
Yeah, yeah.
once I kind of started talking to people, and there's a loose network of people on the Substack comic side kind of sharing notes, and people are kind of figuring things out as we go. And then once we figure out something, we bring it back and tell everyone else. And we started to get a framework for what other people were doing. And speaking as me and Joanne, what we wanted to do. So it took a while to kind of figure what that was, but we have a good idea now. And now that we've been up for about a month, we see what works, what doesn't work, you know, what gets engagement. And so we're kind of fine-tuning things as we go.
Okay. Now, obviously, you've had a long, career and a great body of work. I'll confess I wasn't aware of Joanna until hearing the Substack announcement. What else is she known for as far as previous projects and stuff?
So Joanne is interesting because Joanne has actually been in the comic book industry since she was 16 years old. Like
Wow.
she goes back. She was working at Marvel Knights as an intern. Uh and she kind of grew up in the comic book industry. That's how we
Crazy.
met. You know, I've known her for, you know, over a decade just through conventions and stuff like that. But she decided to kind of take her own way. She for her own reasons, which she's earning of her own show and episode, so I don't want to get too much into it. But she decided to take a different route with her writing, and she went into editing. She went into wrestling for a while. Like she's got a whole backstory, which is like insane. Um, and in the last couple years, I think she just decided that she was like, I have some stories that I want to tell, you know. And she's got a viewpoint that is different than what a lot of people are, you know, doing in the industry. And she just wanted to really get out there. And I was just like, yeah, you want to go for it. And when we got the Substack deal, it was honestly a perfect time for us to kind of put our heads together and say, let me bring what I do to the table and you bring what you do to the table. And what we do is so different, but they come together in this crazy way. And Sirens of the Cities is the marriage of like what I love and what she loves in like one form.
It's got a real shame on me. The Hernandez brothers, Love and Rockets, got a very Love and Rockets feel to it.
Yeah, yeah.
As an old fart, I'll make that observation. But
Listen,
tell me what's the basic plot of Sirens of the City?
there's more to that than you realize. Because basically, Sirens of the City is one. All right, so the basic. I'll give you the basic pitch first. The pitch is, you know, it's a gritty urban fantasy set in the 1980s, New York City. Uh,
Great.
the girl, she's a teenage runaway and she's pregnant. Um, and the baby is supernatural. And furthering that, basically all the supernatural creatures of the city want the baby, and she doesn't want anything to do with it. She's trying to get rid of it.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a whole thing where it's like, you know, it has my love of I live in New York, but I'm not a New Yorker. I'm actually from Boston. But
Okay.
I grew up on like 1980s and 90s New York everything. So the films, the music, just the culture of 1980s New York City is like, that's it for me.
Yep. Yeah.
When I know this movie was based in the 70s, but The Warriors is like one of my favorite movies of like all time. Um, and so like movies like that and like Escape from New York
Sure.
and like all the early 80s hip hop movies like Beat Street and like it all just even Juice from the 90s, like it all like built me as a person. Ninja Turtles, like the early Ninja Turtles, like it's
Yeah, the
all
black and
my
white
favorite
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can
Absolutely.
see all of that in this book. And then on top of that, it's Joanne writing it, and she comes from it from, she knows what it's like being a young girl in New York City in the 80s. Like that's not something I can bring to the picture, like,
Sure.
so she brings a whole nother element to it. And I just think it's a crazy mashup of all our different past influences coming together as this brand new thing.
That's excellent, man. Very cool. I'm a Chicago guy out for my entire life. So the 80s, and I'm proud to say, don't get me wrong, New York had its own vibe, but we had some interesting stuff coming out of Chicago as well that kind of
Of course.
contributed
Of
to
course.
what was going on and everything. And we had bands like Ministry and
Yeah.
Wax Tracks, the great both store and label and stuff, and house music. So
Yeah, all
so
of that stuff, like
King Sportle says you got the juice now. There we go.
yeah.
Very
Hip hop and punk music and like that whole downtown culture and vibe is so influential on like who I am as a person now. And like this was like all like mythical stuff to me. Cause like I grew up in Boston, which is like a hop and skip from New York, but you
Yeah.
only really heard about New York, like I remember visiting New York City. This is crazy. So I visited New York when I was like 8 years old, right? And because my grandfather lived there.
Okay.
And I remember the first time being in Times Square, and it was like so big and loud and like scary, honestly. And it like really affected me. And I'll never forget there was this one moment specifically. Me and my mom were on a bus, right? And we're at a light, and I think we must have been somewhere around like Central Park, East or West, I don't know. And I remember seeing this girl walk down the street in a red dress, and she collapses on the street, like just done. And I'm like, Ma, that girl, she just died. Like, and
Wow.
it freaked me out. And what more freaked me out was the fact that people are just like walking around her and like walking over her like it's nothing. No one's like trying to help this girl. And we're just sitting there for like, we were on a bus, so we couldn't have been sitting there that long, but to me it felt like a lifetime. And then like a couple minutes later, she just got up, dusted herself off, and just walked away like it was nothing. And I was just like, this place is crazy. Like New York is nuts. And those things stuck in my brain. And I was like, man, one of these days I'm gonna tell a story about this crazy ass place because this place is insane. And so I'm literally now I'm doing that, telling. I mean, it's a very fantastical version of New York from the '80s, but I'm happy to finally get this opportunity.
I get it. No, absolutely, man. That's fantastic. It's always hard, obviously, not being able to, have a soundtrack or whatever. First of all, will you guys, and have you through Substack, have you created a playlist of
John,
people to listen to while you're reading the comic?
John, this is me. I don't know how much you know about me. I create a soundtrack for everything. So I have a Spotcat. I mean, I have a Spotify playlist for Sirens of the City right now.
Outstanding, man. That's
I'm just
fantastic.
waiting for the right time to drop it on the people.
That's so great to hear, man. Honestly, like Alex Segura does that for his Pete Fernandez novels that he makes, and I'm always on Dave Gibbons with the originals. And he was a mod, early '60s Brit,
I knew
kind of
that. Yeah.
It's pre-Beatle vibe of music and stuff, and all that shit fascinates the hell out of me. Being a former DJ, and I mean radio DJ, I don't mean mixing DJ,
Right.
but but I'm thrilled. I love music, pop music history, and I'm like, Dave, you got to do a playlist for the originals, man. And I go, put it out there. I was just talking about it with, I think, Ramon the other day, Ramon Perez.
Yeah.
And no, so that's great to hear. Have you
music
heard about...
is like it's a huge part of like everything I do. Like every time I work on a new project, I create a playlist that has the vibe that I'm trying to put out in the music. I mean, even going back to college, I was a college DJ. You know, I was at my art
radio
school.
Station?
Yeah, SVA had a radio station, and they let us. I had a block from I think it was like 5 to 6 p.m. on Fridays, and I could just play whatever I wanted. It was all hip hop, of even 90s hip hop. But like music, I mean, my first website I created a playlist for that back in like 2003. I had a flash player that was playing all my trip hop and everything. Like music is like a giant part of everything I do. And so creating the vibe is everything for me.
Well, I get that sense in terms of your graphic design and a lot of what you put into your covers and your interiors, for that matter. So that doesn't surprise me. Have you heard about this new app that Amazon just put out, and it's still beta testing? It's called AMP, AMP.
No, what's that?
Okay, this is there's I don't know if you know about Clubhouse.
Yes.
Clubhouse. Okay, yeah, Clubhouse, for everyone listening who doesn't know, because I don't know how much I've talked about it here on Word Balloon. It's a closed circuit, and a lot of people, businesses are using it for networking, and a lot of hobbies use it. Sports fans use it to come and talk, and it's essentially no different than a podcast, and people talk amongst themselves. AMP is doing the same thing, but they've got an interesting notch for music people, and that is they cut deals with all the labels. And you could play commercial music and essentially be your own DJ.
Oh,
and yeah, Khary, this is what I'm talking about, man. Honestly, it's weird, and it's brand new.
Okay,
and you got and I mean, again, it's a closed circuit, so you kind of have to maybe come in with friends that are going to sign up for it right away and be your listeners. But I mean, and literally, just to be able to play the music, you just need one follower to open up the ability to do music and stuff. I just signed up for it. I don't know if you noticed, because I've slowly been talking about it. I'm in the midst of making a Monkees documentary.
Oh shit! Okay,
and it's that's what it's going to be called. We Got Something to Say.
Oh, and man, Joanne's gonna love that.
Who's gonna love it?
Joanne is gonna love that. She loves the Monkees.
That's good to hear. Well, maybe Joanne should be on to talk about it, because I need more women. I want more women voices involved. Well, anyway, obviously, just putting it out there on the internet and stuff, I don't feel like spending the money on the licensing and everything to be able to play the monkey music. So we're going to be talking about the music. And my initial thought, and still will be, is to guide people to Spotify and YouTube, and say, hey, if you want to hear the songs that we're talking about, come here, check out these playlists, whatever. But also knowing that AMP is doing it, I'm like, well, maybe I'll do like a weekly supplemental podcast in the AMP app, and talk about the songs that we played, and also drop in some sound bites from the documentary. It's great. We've got all 4 Monkees when they were all alive. Now Mickey's the only one left.
Right.
But all 4 of them while they were alive, we got them, great long interviews that they did with my collaborator.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'm excited for that, man. You are exploding my mind right now with things like that's awesome.
Hey, just like honest, I always feel a kinship with all the comic creators, Khary, because what I'm doing with podcasting, I feel like you guys are doing with comics and stuff. And I mean, I love Word Balloon. I'm going to keep doing it, but I do want to stretch. I do want to do other types of podcasts. Right. And I was working on a different documentary, and then all of a sudden, the tapes that my buddy made of these interviews, he did them for a series of print articles, and he used his micro cassette, and he did it on. He put the micro cassette next to the speakerphone, and it was real tinny, and also wide open room, so a lot of white noise on
Right, right.
on the thing. But then I saw the Beatles Get Back documentary,
Yep. I
and
was just thinking, I was like, that was cool. But like I remember we were even talking, like, boy, this would be cool, but like, what about the monkeys though? Because I feel like they get really slept on, like
oh yeah, man, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, the interesting subject. But the great thing was, I don't know if you knew this about the Get Back Beatles documentary, but Peter Jackson found an audio app that was able to take separate audio that was being recorded during the Let It Be sessions.
hmm
And on the audio, you can hear them tuning their instruments and people talking over them. But this app isolated the four Beatle voices,
Oh
knocked
wow.
out everything else. And
hmm
it's part of the documentary. And I was talking to my buddy because we were trying to clean it up just with an EQ.
Right.
And I suck at sound engineering. I'll be the first person to admit that, despite my years in broadcasting. But there are so many plugins and filters. And I'm like, we don't need to do even the extensive filters that Peter Jackson did. We just got to get, clean, just take care of your central air going off in the middle of your
Right.
interviews and stuff,
Right.
and
Right.
all the white noise. And so we did it, and it cleaned it up. And I'm like, hey, man, this is a podcast. So that's why we're in the midst of doing it. I hope to have the first couple episodes up, if not by the end of this month, and certainly by April.
Oh, so
And
this is coming soon. All right, dope.
oh yeah, man, no. But like I said, we started working on it before we could clean up the tapes, hoping we could. And then when Nesmith died, that was right around when Get Back came out.
Right.
And it's like, oh, maybe that'll work. God damn if it didn't. So I'm like, here we are. I'm like, okay. So yeah,
Oh,
I'm
that's
kind of
awesome.
collecting other interviews, modern interviews to put with the archival stuff we have.
hmm
And no, it's working out, man. So that's great. You know who I want to get is Daryl from Run DMC to talk
Oh,
about the Mary Mary cover.
oh, he'll do that for sure. I'm sure you already have his info.
I honestly don't. I won't say which creator said that they would introduce the subject to him. I haven't heard back, but I gotta keep tabs. If you're friends with Daryl,
I'm sure I can get you in contact with them.
oh, that'd be awesome, Khary.
Yeah.
Seriously, because they really do want to get, because obviously they were fans. They didn't just
Yeah.
pick it for the rhythm and everything. It's
Yeah.
like that's pretty awesome.
And especially because DMC loves comics, he can talk about comics forever.
Oh, I know that too. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. We'll talk off air. We can.
You're a good man. Thank you,
Yeah.
Khary. That's terrific. So, and because is he still in New York?
I don't know. Since the quarantine happened, I don't know what's happening with anybody.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? Like my
I do know.
main outlet for staying in contact with people in the industry was conventions. And so now that we haven't really had those, I try to stay in contact with people when I can, but I'll be honest, I'm bad at it. Like I've especially in the last 6 to 8 months, I've been in my own bubble trying to
Sure.
figure out what I'm doing,
Sure.
especially with the Substack stuff. So I don't know what's happening with people,
Did back to this specific project? Did they approach you? Did they approach you and Joanne together? How did it happen?
So basically what happened was Nick Spencer, who kind of runs the whole Substack Comics initiative,
Yeah.
he approached me. He sent me an email on like a Thursday or a Friday, right? And he was just like, "Hey man, well, we got this whole Substack thing. I wanted to know if you were interested." And keeping it like 100, completely 100% real, I kind of blew it off at first. I was just like, like, I mean, I'll get back to Nick eventually because I think Nick is a good guy. But I had heard a little bit about Substack, and I just wasn't really that interested in doing a newsletter. Like, it didn't.
Like we said, sure.
Yeah, it didn't appeal to me. And then what got it going was actually Scotty Young, who's like a good friend of mine, and he hit me and he said, "Yo, I heard Nick Spencer's trying to get at you. I think you should holler at him." And I'm like, "Scotty, what is this? Like, why are you hitting me up?" And he is just like, "Look, just talk to Nick. This is a big deal." And so knowing Scotty like I know Scotty, if Scotty says something's legit, I know it's legit because I know Scotty wouldn't throw nothing at me that's, not real. Because like you get a lot of stuff in your inbox, and a lot of it is people wanting things, and you're just like, you're not really serious about this, like, and so usually I wait for someone to email me twice. That's how I know it's like for real. But so then I started, I hit up Nick, and we talked on like that Friday, and he was like, all right, just put together some materials over the weekend, and we'll talk again on, it was either Monday or Tuesday, because I think it was a long weekend. So I went to Joanne, and I was like, we got a thing that we need to talk about. Because he wants a new property, and I was like, I don't have anything. Like I have ideas. Like I always said to Joanne, I was like, yeah, I want to do something set in the 80s, that focuses around like hip hop and some other things. And we basically were like, all right. She was like, all right, we got a WeWork. We holed up for a weekend and just started writing things down. And by the end of the weekend, we had created the skeleton of what became Sirens of the City. And then on that Monday, we talked to Nick, and he was like, I love it. Let's do it. And that was it. That was honestly it. And then the deal was signed a couple of days later, and the rest is history, man. It came together shockingly fast. In a time when usually, like, me and her are working on a deal for something else that I can't talk about right now.
Okay.
But we've been talking with these people literally since like September, and the deal still isn't signed yet. Like, things tend to move very slowly. Especially when more money is involved. Oh, why? like when there's very little money involved, people want things done like this. But like when there's a lot of money involved, things move glacially slow. And but Substack, we got it done real quickly, and then we just had a couple months. It was a lot of start and stop because we were trying to decide on the right date to launch it. First, it was supposed to launch first back in like October. Then we pushed it back to November. Then we pushed it back to like top of the year, and then it finally kind of happened in February. So this was like a long time coming, but it gave us time to really figure out what the story was, and for me to stockpile some pages so that I wasn't scrambling to have to like be hitting a crazy deadline every week.
I do, and I think that's smart. So like you do like around 3 pages a week, right?
Yeah, currently it's about 3 pages a week. It depends a little bit on the scene. Like some scenes might be longer or shorter, but right now the cadence is about 3 pages a week. Oh,
Very
and then eventually what we plan on doing is, I mean, we don't have a set number of pages, but let's just say it's like 30 pages. And we'll wind up creating chapters. So it'll be chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And the chapters will wind up behind the paywall. So if someone wants to read it all in like one PDF, pay like $5, and then you can read it all for free. If because sometimes the 3-week cadence isn't for everybody. Like,
yeah,
it's so, if you want to read it 3 pages at a time, sure. If you want to do it Netflix style and just kind of take it all as a bunch, read it as a chapter behind the paywall. But we just want to give people like as many options as possible.
Would you months from now release it either as monthly magazines or as a trade through a traditional publisher at some point?
Yes, the goal overall, when we're talking to some publishers now, the goal is this is a graphic novel. So eventually it's gonna come out as a nice fat graphic novel down the line. But for now, our obligation is Substack first, and then major publishers later.
Sure. No, absolutely. And when this is done, would you continue the relationship with Substack and perhaps do a different comic? I mean, as you say, it's a graphic novel. Is it a graphic novel series, or is it a finite graphic novel?
Yeah, that's as far as we're concerned. Substack is, it's our home for a while. We're creating, a subscriber base, and we don't want to
Right.
forget about those people.
Certainly.
So Substack is home base for like everything we do, for the foreseeable future. Um, as to more Sirens of the City, there's definitely we have a lot of story that we cannot fit in the first volume. So there's plenty of there's plenty opportunity to do more stuff in the future. Um, but obviously that depends on, if people even like it, like we think. I mean, I can tell you honestly, this is like, we were going over letters for pages yesterday, and we were just looking at it and like, this is the best stuff we've ever done. Like, I'm incredibly proud of the way this thing is coming out so far, because it was such a gamble. Um, there was no plan, and we didn't know if this was even going to work. And this is even the art style is like, I'm not a black and white guy. I'm a color artist. I love working in color. But doing this art style has really liberated me to kind of figure out some new stuff with my art that's kind of going into it now. And it's all just been like a wild learning experience,
That's cool. And is that self-discovery, or do you have artist friend gurus that can kind of help you out in just doing it black and white versus what you've normally done?
This is all me, man. I mean, obviously, I'm looking at other people for inspiration. I could list a number of people who I'm like, oh, I like, what Chris Somney does with shadow. I love what Becky Cloonan does with, rendering forms and textures and stuff like that. I love what with just background texture, you know. And I mentioned Ninja Turtles before. I'm very much trying to tap into like that grittiness, and messiness of the Eastman and Laird era of the 80s.
Outstanding. Yeah.
Which is different for me because I being messy is very difficult for me. Like, I'm a very technical artist in a lot of ways, so I have to like, I'll do a clean pass of the page first and be like, nah, and I'll just start like going over it with texture and messing it up. I dirty up every page because I'm like, this is too clean. It's too precise. I need to go back in and grunge it up a little bit. So it's all me learning as I go. And I think, for me at least, I think that's interesting because we're posting kind of the behind the scenes stuff at the same time. So
Yeah.
people can kind of see like we're learning as we're doing it. And so this is all very organic and happening in real time, which I think as a creator is kind of dope.
That's been the great thing, I think, for the last 20 years is the involvement of the audience in process
Yeah.
at a level that I don't think it had ever really been explored before.
Yeah.
And that's cool. But at the same time, and it's funny that you mentioned Eastman and Laird and the 80s. The 80s black and white period, when things really started finally happening in the last 20 or so years with creator owned stuff, again, as an old reader and stuff, it reminded me of the excitement of the 80s black and white period because everybody was making comics and
Yeah.
all different kinds and all different art styles and great ambitious stories. I love talking to guys like Sienkiewicz and others, Dave Gibbons as well, that came from that era, and just again the excitement of that and the energy, and that was at the heart of my college years,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
really brought me back to comics in a much more serious way because all of a sudden they grew up a little bit. The
Yeah.
storytelling grew up a little bit, and I felt like I was the right age to appreciate it. And it really made I mean, once I started dating, I stopped. I dropped comics because you need money for dates, man. Can't buy the comics anymore. But
I'm
this
aware,
back
sir.
into reading, you know.
I mean, I think this time right now, because Um, I, here's a weird result of the quarantine. Uh, I think it forced people to kind of reevaluate what they are doing with, their lives, their careers, and you're just like, bro, like nothing is promised. So like you can't just sit around waiting for life to happen. You got to go get it now because, you know, who knows what can happen tomorrow. And I think that has really affected the way I go about my work. I've spent the last 20 years working for companies like Marvel and DC and trying to create that style of art. And honestly, I was just like, with this kind of thing, I was like, this is a way to kind of just do something that nobody can control. There's no editorial saying you can't do that, you can't say that, and just go for it. And uh I think this is a good time for creative people to just, if you have a voice, just to let it go, man. Like, no, there is an audience for you, put it like that. To echo, I don't want to get into what we mentioned off mic, but what I'll say is, like, you can tell any story you want, and there's someone who's going to be into it. So spend time creating the best thing that you want to put out, and you can put it out, whether it's through Kickstarter, whether it's through Indiegogo, whether it's through Substack. Just don't, there's no more excuses for getting your ideas out.
I
um
totally know, and I'm with you, man. And again, this is the kinship that I feel with you guys writing and drawing, because it happened for me broadcasting, transitioning into podcasting full time.
yeah,
And I don't blame anybody personally, but the broadcast business has only contracted more and more jobs are disappearing, and they're relying on fewer people to do the same amount of work
yeah,
that double the staff used to do years ago.
yeah,
And like you said, it's like, if you feel like you've got an ability, go for it. Don't wait for the job to come to you.
right,
And really it was like, all right, well, I've always treated Word Balloon as kind of a side gig. And then it was when I got downsized at the beginning of COVID, it was like, go for it, man. You're sitting on, you're getting a little bit of severance.
yeah,
That'll keep you going for a few months. Let's try and turn this into a full-time thing. Thankfully things are going okay, and I mean, and doors are opening that weren't open before. And yeah, it's God, I have to give credit Gareb Shamus
mhm,
uh for putting it into words. It's the decentralization of a lot of different businesses, and us making media is included in that, in
yeah,
terms
oh,
of,
completely,
you don't have to go to a publisher. I don't
yeah.
have to go to a broadcast company. We just put our stuff out there, and like you said, there's an audience, and they're willing to follow us.
And what I noticed, and this is, I wouldn't do anything differently in my career because I feel like everything that I did in the past leads up to the now, and so I'm thankful
Absolutely.
for all of it.
Oh yeah.
But I do know that I spent a lot of time early in my career trying to, like, make other people happy. Like thinking like, let me draw this way because this is what the editors want, this is what the audience wants, and I think that there was something that switched in my brain. Maybe, I mean, this happened pre-COVID, but somewhere, let's say around like 2014, 2015, where I was just like, man, excuse my language, but fuck that.
Let
Like
go for it. It's all right.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna, I'm gonna draw and create the stuff that I want to make, and let's just put it out there and see what happens. And when I started doing that, I noticed that people actually responded to my work a lot more than they did before, because I wasn't trying to emulate anyone else or trying to please other people. I was creating stuff that was very true to me, and I think that showed in the work, and I think people responded to that more. And so, like, with every new project I've done going forward, I put a little bit more into myself and a little bit more into myself, and it really has helped my career in like leaps and bounds. So I guess what I'm saying is, to anyone who's young, coming up, like, play the game. I get it. You got to pay bills, do what you have to do, but also create for yourself as well, because chances are the stuff you're making for yourself is probably a lot better than the stuff you're making for a paycheck, you know?
Well, and that model of building your audience, working with even the big two, DC and Marvel, and
Yeah,
doing their characters, but then taking that audience with you, and
yeah,
they want to see more of your own creator own stuff. And I mean, from
yeah.
Bendis to Scotty Young to Gail Simone and others, it's like these are kind of the moves they made. And yeah, so I'm thrilled that it's happening for you. Is there interest on your part and time to still do the occasional variant covers or whatever for the big two?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing about variant covers is I've had to scale back some because, the
Sure.
Substack deal is it's 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 a lot more, since you're not just, I'm not just an artist now. I'm kind of like a business owner as well. So
Yeah.
I have to put the Substack thing first. But that said, I still do like doing variant covers here and there, just because it's a nice outlet to um kind of like just fool around with, it's like it's almost like cheating on your main relationship, in a sense, where it's just like, yeah, I'll mess around with this little side piece for a minute, but my heart is here, and I'm not. Listen, let's be clear. I am not a cheater at all. I'm a very faithful person. But what I'm saying is, the concept of it is that, like, you flirt over here on the side, but you bring the meat and potatoes here.
I'm a,
And messing around with some of the stuff for DC and Marvel, it's a fun side project. Um, and I get to actually experiment a lot on their stuff, figure out and make all the mistakes over there, and then bring it back over here and do it right on my stuff.
that's
So
fantastic.
um, that's kind of the way I see it. And then still, look, at the end of the day, if you hit me up and say, "Hey, man, we want you to draw a Batman cover," like, what am I gonna say? No, I'm like, I'm not too big for Batman. Like, let's be clear. Um, it's just a thing where I will not be doing like interior work for those companies.
Sure.
Because that to me is something different. Doing interior work is like, it's taking a giant um it's taking a giant chunk out of your life, and uh that stuff takes a lot of time. um
Sure.
and I feel like if I'm going to spend months and months working on a project, I would much rather it be a project that I owned, as opposed to doing that work for someone else.
Oh God,
um
yes.
so I would never say I would never work for Marvel and DC ever again. I will never say that. I'd never close that door. But I can say that for the immediate future, I think the main brunt of what I do is for myself.
Very cool, man. I should show this little image of Black Widow and Wolverine there from you.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And so I want to talk about that, because so that
Sure.
Wolverine project, that was the last interior work that I did for Marvel. That was like either an 8 or a 10-page story that I did with Kelly Thompson. And
Kelly's great.
I used that story to try out the style that I'm now using on Sirens of the City. I had never done a black and white story like that before. And so I was just like, this is a perfect time. Black, white, and red. I can color it myself because it's not a ton of color. And
Right.
I tried out a bunch of techniques and refined what I now use on Sirens of the City.
That's fantastic. That's excellent. Very, very cool, man. Do you have any upcoming variant covers, or again, it's all Sirens of the City right now?
I do. I don't know if I'm supposed to say what those are yet.
Okay. No problem, man. How about
I,
conventions? Have you made plans for getting back in the swing this year?
okay. So I'm still figuring that out.
Sure.
I have an art rep, and I know that they would love for me to get back to the convention game. Um, I'll be honest and say that the idea of sitting in a confined space with thousands of people for 3 to 4 days at a time, with no windows
I'm hip.
is it's a tough call for me, man. I
I
mean,
get it.
I still
Get it.
can't go to the movies yet. Like,
I haven't, Kari, I haven't seen Spider-Man, have not seen Batman.
haven't seen
I
any of
get
it.
it. I get it.
You know, so like if I can't sit and watch Batman for 3 hours in a theater, I don't know if I have it in me to sit in a place with a lot more people for like 3, 4 days. Like it's
I,
just I'm not there yet. Like and it's hard for me because I want to be there. Like I miss my friends, I miss the fan interaction. Um there are there's probably since the quarantine happened, I've easily put out 50 comic books that I've never signed. You know what I'm
wow.
saying? Like
Yeah.
in terms of covers, in terms of, issues of excellence or
Right.
whatever. Like I have a lot of content that has come out since 2020 and I would love to talk to people about it, but am I comfortable doing it? Not just yet. Um so what I can say is, me and Joanne have been talking about like just getting a hotel room in San Diego when Comic-Con happens and taking some meetings with people or lunches or dinners and stuff like that just to link up with people and pretend like we're sort of at Comic-Con, but stepping foot inside of Comic-Con right now, like, I
I
don't
get
know,
it.
man. I
I
don't
know. I
know.
get it. Well, I got an idea that I'll discuss with you off the air that may help bridge to the point when you're comfortable again
Sure.
going into conventions. But let's talk about excellence for a
For
moment.
sure. For sure.
Very cool, man. So it has excellence wrapped up. This is your image book of Black Magicians,
Hmm.
and pretty cool concept. But how many? First of all, how many arcs? And are you finished with excellence or not?
Okay, so first of all, there are 12 issues or 2 trade paperbacks of Excellence that are out right now. Um, Excellence is not over. We actually had a group email about Excellence this week, talking about the future of Excellence and how it's going to move forward. Excellence has a very strong future uh, that I will be involved in some capacity. Um, but there still is sure I should say how many issues are left to go, but it's a finite book and there's
Okay.
issues left. Um, and me drawing more issues of excellence that are just me, uh, it's not really in the future just because time is limited, man. And
Sure, man. No, and that's the
you know,
biggest. Your carrying the art is always the most time-consuming responsibility of any
right,
creative, comic book effort. So sure.
right. So excellence is gonna move forward and I will be involved in some fashion. For sure, that I'm gonna be on covers because, excellence is my baby. Excellence is like uh outside of Sirens, excellence is the best thing I've ever worked on. And me and Brandon and Emilio, we put our hearts and souls into excellence. And so we're gonna finish this story out in like a major way. It's just figuring out the proper way to get that story out. Um, this is me being very diplomatic right now, trying to I'm parsing my words very carefully.
All good, man.
Um, but that said, excellence will continue. And we have an ending in mind that is phenomenal. And people who are fans of the book, please stay tuned because we've got you. Don't worry.
That sounds good. How has and I'm glad to hear that as far as the excellence fandom. How has it been for Sirens of the City? It's been just around a month since you guys have started and everything.
Yeah.
What kind of initial feedback are you getting from this
Uh,
subset audience?
it's been great so far. The funny thing about Sirens is that I expected a lot more blowback with the story because you know going into it, we always said that like, look, if we're gonna tell a story, we should talk about stuff that's important to us, like, and the literal first splash page of Sirens of the City is the main character Layla walking to an abortion clinic. Like it's heavy. Like it's real heavy, but we weren't, we were like we weren't going to duck the conversation, like these are things that are important to us, important to Joanne, important to me. Like you creating art is having a point of view, and we want the discussions. So we were ready for a lot more hate, should we say? Um, and that hasn't really come our way just yet, which is great.
Sure.
Less hate is good for me. Like, um, but for sure, like there are heavy themes in this book, um, that we are sure that people will have opinions on. And honestly, that's what you want. You never want to create art where people don't have an opinion about whether it's right or wrong. Like you create art so that there can be a conversation.
Yes.
And that's where it's at right now. But the feedback we've been getting has been like mind blowing. Like I didn't know what to expect. Having a touchy subject book, doing a book that's black and white, which is not always a big seller. Outside of The Walking Dead, black and white is not a thing that people really do. Um, it's a different art style for me. So we were really just like, let's just go crazy and like do something that maybe you couldn't do at a Marvel or DC or maybe even Image. I don't know. And we're just glad. Like I mentioned that the book is very influenced by hip hop and punk, and
Yeah.
we would try to carry that vibe, which is like this is a little counterculture. Like this is not something that's for everybody. And if you fuck with it, you fuck with it, and if you don't, you don't. If you don't, no hard feelings. I'll see you on the next one. When
Sure.
when I draw Superman, you can come see that. But like this is this is a book that is supposed to be speaking to a very specific crowd, and we're not really holding back.
Well, again, this is why I'm thrilled that some a corporation like Substack can afford to fund these kind of passion projects that may not be commercially interesting to DC, Marvel, Image, or whatever. And it gives you guys a chance to tell these stories. And yeah, be thought provoking. Absolutely,
Yeah,
take
why not,
chances.
man?
Hell yeah, absolutely. No, I don't blame you, and I think that's great. Now I got a comment from Dante
Please.
regarding excellence. And here, well, let me get the cover down. He says he's a big fan of the projects you've worked with Emilio,
Hmm.
like Mosier and Excellence. Any chance of Emilio doing those interiors? I know he draws pretty damn well. Whenever I look at that mosaic remarks you guys did for Dante at Royal.
Oh
So
yeah. Emilio. All right. So first of all, shouts out to Emilio Lopez. Emilio Lopez is like my brother from another mother. Like I have not worked with any creator as much as I've worked on Emilio. Period. Like he colors probably 95% of my output. Period. And it's that's a question for Emilio. I don't want to speak for him. Emilio certainly he's an incredible artist, and if he wants to draw more interiors, he is more than welcome to. But he also has a lot going on that people don't know about. Like Emilio works in animation, he works in video games. Like he's got a lot of things that he doesn't need comics, man. Like he he does comics like for real for the love, because
I
he
get it.
could have left comics years ago and be making a lot more money, doing what he does. And so he is one of those people who's also I mean, he's a fantastic person to talk to because he and I have a lot in common in the sense that while I started in comics, I left comics for about 5 years to go into animation because comics wasn't working for me. It wasn't paying the bills. And so I left comics to kind of just survive. And so I went into animation for a couple years, and that's where I met Emilio on. We worked on the Ninja Turtle show from 2003 to 2009. Like he was coloring for that show. And so it's one of those things where a lot of artists, I don't know how much people talk about it, but like sometimes you gotta leave comics if it ain't working for you.
I get it.
It's a tough industry with long hours and not a lot of pay. And some people are just like, why would I do that when I could be making 3-4 times that over here? And so, Emilio came to comics because I asked him. I was like, you understand my artwork more than anyone else. Please work with me. And he was doing me a solid, and we've been together like ever since.
Wow.
But once I started working on Sirens, where I was just like, I don't need you, bro. Dude, you do your own thing. He's kind of forging his own path, and you're actually going to see him on a lot more stuff that's just him going forward. And every time he shows me stuff, I'm like, oh, that's what I want to see. Like I'm so glad that he's not under me. He's like making his own path now. Because I always felt like I was holding him back. I was always like, you don't need me. People need to see your art.
I get it.
And
Absolutely.
so I tell everyone all the time, like, follow what Emilio's working, because he's working on some really cool shit.
That's great to hear. Wesley wants to know if Jeffrey Thorne were to write a new Mosaic script, would you be interested in getting in on the project?
People ask me that question all the time. We actually we linked up with Jeffrey Thorne right before the quarantine started. We did a short Mosaic story in a book called Marvel Voices that came out, I want to say, in like February 2020. And me, Emilio, and Jeff always talk about, Mosaic, because he still has a lot of story left in him. And like I said, I would never close any door to anything. There's nothing in the plans for me right now as far as Mosaic, but if the right opportunity came along, that would, it could happen. Like there was Mosaic was a character that I created. Well, I created with Jeff, but let's be clear. Me and Jeff are the creators of Mosaic. And so I have an ownership of that character, and I want the best for him. So if there was an opportunity to do it the right way, there's always a conversation that could be had.
That's got to feel good. Are there other characters you created for Marvel or DC?
Not that matter. Like,
Yeah.
I'll say this, so I worked on We Are Robin for DC a couple years back.
Yeah, I remember that book. Sure.
And so Duke Thomas, I am not considered the creator of Duke Thomas. Duke Thomas was created by Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. But that said, I feel an ownership and a kinship towards Duke because he was like the main character of We Are Robin. And we spent a lot of time and effort trying to build him up to basically be like a major character at DC Comics. And it's so when I see him now, he's the Signal these days.
Yes.
And I see him showing up in books here and there, and so it makes me proud to say that I had a hand in kind of, while I wasn't the guy that created him, I had a large hand in guiding that character towards something. And so every time I see Duke in a book, it's like I kind of feel like a proud father. I mean, I'm not getting the Duke royalty checks like that, unfortunately. But I love Duke Thomas.
Right. They
And
better when Duke shows up in animation, they better at least put you on the special thanks
just give me
vanity
the
card and
special
everything.
thanks. That's all I want, man. I mean, I'll take some money too, but also I just want to see my name in the credits of something, you know.
That's hilarious. Oh, animation was there? I mean, how was that compared to comics?
Animation was great. It's a it's a it's a completely different thing. Like, you know, when I made the switch to animation, I thought that it would be a seamless transition because you know I know how to draw. I'm kind of a cartoony artist already, so you know it's I didn't think it would be that difficult for me. But what I found is that it's while it uses some of the same uh talents and abilities, it's its own thing. Um
Yeah.
I worked on Wolverine and the X-Men for a couple years doing character design. I worked on Ninja Turtles. I worked on Boondocks for a season. Um,
Dude, I love Boondocks, and Andrea Romano is the only person I ever got a chance to talk to
yeah,
about Boondocks. Boondocks is such a great series, man, and I
it's the
love the strip
best.
as well. But
It's the
great
best.
animated series.
It's just I loved working in animation, and it's something I would like to do again, honestly. Um, but the tough thing about comics is that it's kind of like comics is kind of like a drug, man. So like when I left the animation, I had a great job, I had benefits, you know, I had everything that an artist would want, and I still was just I had that itch like, man, I just want to go back to comics and do that. Um and I think uh unfortunately for me, comics is always going to be in my blood. Um, so I may stray here and there to do other things, um, but I will always be making comics in some fashion for the rest of my life. It's just it is what it is, man. Like it's comics was my first love, um, and there's nothing to knock about animation. Animation's great. I'm gonna do it again, um, but comics has always been my first passion.
I get it, man. That's me with audio. I mean, I can't help it. I this is what I wanted to do ever since I was in hell listening to the radio overnights. And I
Yeah,
mean, you know, overnight radio, especially news and information like that, that was like the internet back then. It was like
yeah,
I can't believe somebody's up at 3 a.m. and they've got all this. They're spewing all this information just like it's 10 in the morning or whatever. It doesn't matter, and it's like this. I was fascinated by that, and I'm like, I want to get in on that. That and
yeah.
when I saw the movie Help, the Beatles movie,
Hmm.
and you see them recording You're Gonna Lose That Girl in the recording studio, and I'm like, I want to work in a room like that. That's where I want to be, is in front of a mixer and doing stuff and everything. So
Well,
no,
that's just it, man. Like I remember being, you know, a 13-year-old, um, you know, watching the rise of like Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri and all these guys, and just thinking they were like the coolest guys ever. I was just like, man, this guy's in like a Levi's commercial, man. Like this guy, like I just thought that I was like, I knew that that was gonna be me. I want to be a rock star like those guys are because it just seemed like, you know, it just seemed so cool to just draw all day and have people want you to sign an autograph for your drawing. Like that's insane. Like it's nuts to me. It's still nuts to me now that I get to walk into a convention hall and people line up for my autograph. I'm like, do you even realize like I'm well, it's me. It's me. Like it's not that serious.
I know I get and truly, man, I don't mean to sound like I'm feeding on my own compliments, but people are like, oh, it's so nice to meet you, man. I've been a fan for a long time, and I
Yeah,
literally
and you're just like,
sometimes will say,
why?
yeah, I'm like, aim higher. I'm like, I am low hanging fruit, man. God damn, I'll shake hands with anybody. Aim high, as long as they wash their hands first.
For
Aim
real,
higher.
man. Like there are times when like because I live very close to an art school in New York City. Sometimes I'll be walking down the street and like someone will like recognize me in the street, like, yo, man, are you? When they always go, are you Khary Randolph? And I'm like, I mean, close enough. I mean, yes.
Close enough.
And it's a bug out when people know who you are, like on the street. Like that's not supposed to happen. Like I'm in my sweatpants, my dirty sweatpants, trying to get some coffee, man. I'm like, no. But it's cool, man. I always wanted to be that. So being able to live your dreams in some capacity is just like, it's just the coolest shit to me.
Well, Dante says he's known you for years. Stop selling yourself short. You're cool as fuck and a hell of an artist. Absolutely, man.
Dante, I appreciate that.
Could not agree more. And then King Sport Cal wanted to know if there are other, like, who do you think are the cool characters of color right now at the big two? And obviously, I mean, I've been loving these announcements regarding Milestone, and it's certainly I'm very hopeful that, I mean, goddamn, they've been teasing us for Christ, like 5 years or so, where Reggie and Dennis Cowan and all these guys are like, hey, we're bringing Milestone back. It's like, fucking bring it back, man.
Dude, it's I remember like when the talk first started years ago, and I just remember putting people, that bug in people's ear, like, hey man, when you guys finally put it together, just holler at your boy, man. Like I would like to be a part in some way because I grew up on Milestone, like
yeah.
So that Milestone is a big part of why I do what I do now. So being able to be a part of it now in some form is just like that's check. I got something on the list, man. So yes, obviously I have to, I'm biased, and I think Static is like one of the coolest characters. Even he's 30 years old at this point, but he still is. He's what should be DC's version of Spider-Man. Like he should be like at that level to me. And because he's young, he's cool, but he's also kind of a nerd at the same time.
Yeah.
I think he's very relatable to kids like me who were like, look, man, I tried to look cool in high school, but I was never the coolest person. I would rather be, in a corner playing a video game or reading a comic book or a book somewhere, man. Like, I think it's important to have characters like that, that kids can actually relate to. And of course, there's Miles Morales, who's just blew the hell up in the last couple of years, which is great. Like that first Spider-Verse movie. I remember I sat in the theater and it was just tears running down my face, man. Like I was just like, I can't believe this is happening right now. Like Spider movie that was literally made for me,
I get it. Yeah.
Or like a version of me that I did not have when I was 13. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
So just having that is important, and it's important to create like me to be able to create characters that existed, that I didn't have, like obviously, coming up, I loved Spider-Man, I loved Batman, I loved all these characters, but seeing yourself represented in a character is a different experience. And so, and I want that, I have little nephews now, and I create with them in mind, like I want them to see themselves in these characters. I think it's hugely important,
I do. That's awesome. And yeah, I want to open it beyond DC and Marvel. I found King Sport Cal's question. What are your picks for what's hot in comics as far as Black characters? So, I mean, hell, Sanford and Dave Walker and Chuck Brown are certainly doing great work right now.
Bitterroot's phenomenal. Bitterroot is, I mean, I've known Sanford since I broke into the industry, so seeing him have all this success is phenomenal.
I'm with you.
I'll be honest, I follow creators more than I follow characters.
Me too.
So I just like to champion the creators. So, my brother Brandon Thomas, who we started at Excellence, but now he's doing just amazing stuff at DC Comics and elsewhere. Everything he's doing is amazing. I see a Afua Richardson doing cool stuff every day.
What a very sweet woman. My God. I
Yeah.
really like Afua a lot. And especially when she got the chance with the HBO show. And it's God damn
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
my brain's freezing right now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Lovecraft
Lovecraft County, absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Jesus. And real, I mean, goddamn, man, I'm from Chicago, and I'm
I know you
embarrassed
love
to
that.
say, I didn't know about half of that shit. And it's like, God, it was so eye-opening in a really important way and everything. And again, Afu is just and all the stuff she did with Black Panther. No, she's amazing.
There's so many people who are doing cool shit right now. Nicholas Draper Ivy, he's the artist on Static. He's the main artist.
Okay.
And I've known him. I knew him. He's gonna hate me saying this, but I was kind of like a mentor to him when he was first trying to find his legs. So now seeing him like come into his own as an artist is like a proud moment for me. Like seeing him just figure it out. And he's such a phenomenal artist. And he's just one of those guys like you have to watch him. Get in early on that kid because he's only gonna be doing cooler and cooler stuff. Those are I mean, there's a lot more people but I could be here all day just shouting people out. So
no, that's cool, man. There you go. Honestly, hey, and I know we're probably getting into dinner time. You got stuff you got to do in the evening. We could wrap up, but like I said, Khary, long time coming. I'm so glad we did this, and
sure.
it's better be the recurring appearances of you on Word Balloon, man. So we'll again point to Sirens of the City.
Yes,
it
sir.
is a free Substack comic. You sign up and subscribe. If you do the pay route, you're going to get a lot more process and a lot more behind the scenes and a lot more bonus content. But if you just want to get the comic hitting your mailbox every couple times a week,
go to glasseyecomics.com and that'll direct you straight to the Substack link.
Beautiful. Excellent, man. And continued success. I really appreciate you talking. Hang out for a quick second and we'll talk off the air. But everybody, thanks a lot for watching. I'm going to do our Kinescope show later tonight, kind of a heavy subject. It's the television original Judgment at Nuremberg, about the Nuremberg trials, and heavy stuff, but amazing performances. And George Roy Hill, the guy who directed The Sting and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and World According to Garp, he directed this television play in 1959. It's me, Gabe Hardman, Ian Brill, and Jeff Parker talking about the days of early television on Kinescope, and that's happening tonight. Khary will be in bed. It's 12:30 Eastern AM, 11:30 Central, and 9:30 Pacific time. So join us then. Until then, thanks a lot for watching. Everybody, as I always say, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.